Hi, everyone. My name's Emma. Welcome back to the Champions of Wonder podcast. Today, we're going to talk about 2 childhood lessons that we could take into our lives right now and create the world that we want to live in. So we talk about here on this podcast, how can we look at the world around us and look at the lessons that life offers constantly to create the world that we want to live in. 2 lessons from childhood. There are many lessons that childhood offered us that we soon forgot about as we got older, as time seemed to change, and as childhood seemed to be, too childlike, that it was for children. And one of the things that many of us were taught was different values. We had to respect one another. We had to be kind to each other. We had to share. And a lot of the times, we turn from looking at values as being the thing that we did all the time to looking at goals, getting that A, getting into that class, getting into that college. And when we make that transition, there's a very clear change in how these kids approach school. Oftentimes, younger kids enjoy going to school because they're excited to learn. They're excited to just live in that moment. But as we get older, school transitions into just being goal-oriented. You have to do well on the SATs. You have to get into that school. You need to get good grades. You need to join a club. You need to be competitive on the applications. So when that switch happens, we turn from living out values to living for goals. And when that switch happens, our purpose changes. And only in one of those scenarios is a purpose something that we can fulfill every single moment of every single day. If we have a goal to someday be a millionaire, and our values include being creative and learning and being respectful to people, sharing knowledge, the values that we have can and will get us to that goal. But if we live for that goal, I need to do this to achieve that, and we passively look at our values or don't look at them at all, we will only be living for that one day that we may become a millionaire. And then if we don't become that millionaire or achieve that goal, we will feel like we wasted so much time, and then we'll feel bad about ourselves. But if we switched back to living for those values and figuring out first what those values actually are, there's many resources out there, and you can really just look it up very quickly, values. And there's a bunch that will come up, and some values include respect, learning, being creative, enjoying being around people. What kind of things do you gravitate towards, and how can you incorporate that more and more into your daily lives? Because at the end of the day, if you someday make a lot of money or someday become famous, is it going to matter if the journey to get there was not interesting, it was boring, it was draining, or would you rather to enjoy that moment, enjoy that journey every step of the way? And if you become a millionaire, if you become famous, it doesn't really matter, because the end goal is just a cherry on top. It's not the entire point. It's not the destination, it's the journey. And that's something that we were always taught as kids too. We have to enjoy playing with one another, enjoy the process of learning. And the children who can hold on to that childlike wonder are the ones who continue to enjoy school. Whereas the kids who are forced to take on goals, and when they aren't achieving them, when they aren't getting the straight A's or achieving as high as they are expected to, they begin to dislike school, because it's no longer about enjoying the process. It's about forcing a goal to come to life and come to fruition. And we can see that in our own lives. If we are always dead set on the next goal, getting the promotion, getting the new job, getting the car, getting the house, getting married, there's always a goal, and the goalpost for becoming happy is always somewhere else. And if happiness is over there, it can never be where you are. And if we continue to live that way, we're going to be in this state of never enjoying the moment, and we can only exist right now. The past doesn't exist, and the future doesn't exist either. It's only right now. And if we're constantly anxious about the future and we're worried about the past, we can't change either of those moments in time. No matter what happened before, you can change it. No matter what will someday happen in the future, you can't really change it except for how you decide to move through the world right now. And that brings me into the next lesson is we have to choose every single moment of every single day our purpose. We have to live in alignment with who we actually are. And this is more towards the end of our careers in school, but we had to choose every single day that we were going to go to school. If you decided on a major, you didn't just pick that major once. You had to pick that major every single time you took a test, every single time you decided to study, every single time you went to get help for that class, whether that be when you were in 4th grade or when you were a senior in college. Every single time you decided to study, to take the test, to study with your friends, to read, you were deciding that major. You were deciding and choosing who you were going to be in that moment. And that's just the truth for us every single moment of every single day. We have to make a choice, and we have to make it over and over again. There's not one day where you're going to decide, well, I'm going to be an engineer. You are picking that every single time you decide to go to work, every single time you decide to study, every single time you are working with people, every single time you are learning a new skill, you're learning a new subject. You are deciding that purpose in your life. And that really ties into the whole value system. We have to choose our values every single moment of every single day, which will then align with the purpose that we want to achieve. If our goal is to be a successful lawyer someday, or successful doctor, or to have a family, if we choose to align with our values every single moment of every single day, we will be able to achieve that because we are living in alignment with what we already believe. And our values and our goals really do line up. And if we are choosing values that correlate with what we want to do, then we will be living out our truth every single moment of every single day. And now that might sound intense. How can I choose every single moment of every single day? Well, the truth is, every single time you are choosing to do something, you're equally choosing not to do something. And we can all really take a step back and reevaluate, how are we spending our time? Are we choosing to watch TV instead of write another paragraph for that book that we want to someday write? And why are we choosing these things? We need to be asking ourselves the questions of, why are we continuing to purposely choose the path that seems to go against what we want in life? And then we have to get real with ourselves. Is the path that we claim that we want, is it actually the one that we want? Is it giving us something to complain about when we don't achieve it? What are we doing? It requires self-reflection, which is something that in school we did a lot more of as well. When we were younger, we were constantly asked, how do you feel about this? What is going on? What do you think? What did you learn? We always had to provide summaries of the things that we learned as well. And that's something that we stopped doing. If we really were to take a step back, what did you actually learn from that experience? Can you dig through it? Can you harbor the lessons from it and actually fulfill some kind of new knowledge that you can take with you in the next step, in the next phase of your life? And the truth is, we really can do this often, and we have to if we want to live that fulfilled life. If we want to figure out what our values are, if we want to live out those values, if we want to choose to be that person that is creative and interesting and lives a life where they enjoy it 95% of the time instead of hating it 95% of the time and just living for the weekend or for just doing nothing. We have so much time every single day to choose the life that we want. Even if you feel that you have to go to a certain job or you just have to do certain things, the way we approach those things and the way we decide to spend our time after those things really is up to us, and how we enjoy that moment, how we approach it is really up to us as well. And we can go through our entire lives grudgingly and hating every moment and complaining throughout the whole thing, or we can really take a step back and evaluate, what do I actually want? And then start living in alignment with that. And it's not an easy task to sit down and to go through these emotions, but it's not something that's going to take up your entire rest of your life, in the sense that you're going to fall into this deep hole and you're going to have to evaluate every single emotion you've ever felt. At the end of the day, if you are confronted with the past and there's parts of it you don't want to deal with, you can also choose to just let it go. And there's many amazing books and resources out there that go over the topics of dealing with our emotions and letting go of them, which is something that unfortunately isn't the main subject taught in schools. Is how do we deal with our emotions? How do we deal with relationships with ourselves, with others, with parents, with siblings? We're not often taught how to create meaningful and sustainable relationships in our lives, and especially not with ourselves. But if we can go back to those original lessons that we taught, live out your values, be kind to others, be willing to share, be accepting of one another, and to just forgive one another and to forgive yourselves. If we can apply those lessons to ourselves first and then to others, we can really make that difference. And if we are able to hold on to having that childlike wonder, if we're interested in life, if we want to learn from people, if we want to be engaged in conversations, if we want to be present in that moment with your job, whether you love it or you're just doing it because you have to, try to enjoy it as much as you can. How can you live out your values every moment of every day? When you're at work, what values can you live out? Can you be kinder to people? Can you make jokes? Maybe comedy is something that you really value. How can you bring that into your life more often? And it might not have to be every second you're cracking a joke or being overly involved with your values, but you can live them out. And every moment that you do, you will feel more at peace, more present. And like we said, we cannot live in the past and we cannot live in the future. But many of us are stuck in both of those places, often at the same time. And if you're looking at the past and you're looking at the future, you cannot move. You have to be able to let go of what was and also let go of what will be. If you never become famous, if you never travel the world, if you never do certain things, the way that you live moment to moment is what builds the entirety of your life. What you do right now is going to influence the next moment. And the thing is, if it influences it in a way you don't like it, guess what? In 2 hours, you get to change again. Every second of every day, you get to choose. You get to choose every moment, what you do, how you approach that moment. Maybe there's certain things that we can't control, but how we approach things is something that is absolutely in our control. And once we do this, once we live for our values, once we realize we get to decide every moment who we're going to be, we realize how much power we actually have. And in a world that tries to tell us you have no power, you have no say, you can't do anything, your voice doesn't matter, your actions don't matter, realizing how much influence we have over our own lives and how much of an influence we have over others as well. If we're kinder to people at work, on the street, people usually respond very quickly. If you're annoyed, if you're mad, then you create that atmosphere. The mindset that you have is the one that will reflect the world that you see. If you believe positively, if you believe that the world is a place that you can create and that you can become, if you can see that in your mind, then it becomes your reality. And if you feel like, oh, my life is going terribly, everything always goes wrong, well, you're just confirming that reality as you see it. And it's up to us, whichever one we choose. And the thing is, both of these decisions are hard. It's hard to live out your truth every day. It's hard to choose to be kind when you'd rather just be annoyed. It's hard to do that, but it's also hard to be annoyed all the time. It's also hard to complain all the time. At the end of the day, we have to choose which hard we want. And only one of those is going to create a fulfilling life, one that is joyful and happy, and one that we can be excited about every single day, because we're living for each moment and not living for some potential hypothetical goal that may or may not ever come to fruition. At the end of the day, what will it matter if you make a lot of money if you don't enjoy the people that you're around? Who are you going to celebrate that with? You're going to import new problems into your life. And that's the thing. If happiness always exists after this happens or after that happens, why don't we just take the feeling after we get the goal and just live with that feeling all the time? I mean, why can't we do it? There's no one stopping us from being like, you know what, I did achieve goals today. I did this, and that. I lived my values. I chose to be kind to the person who pushed me, or to just choose to be the best version of yourself for yourself first, and then for others around you. You know, if somebody is interacting with you in a negative way, you get to choose how you react to that. And it's difficult because that requires a lot of responsibility. And that's the thing that scares a lot of us, is like, all right, well, now if I have power, with great power comes great responsibility. So I have this power over my life. Now I'm responsible. Now everything that does happen is actually up to me. So now I can't blame the teacher I had in 4th grade or my parents for not letting me go on that school trip, or that boss passing me up for the promotion. We realize that a lot of power exists within our own hands. And when we can do that and realize, you know what, I am responsible. But at the end of the day, if you create a beautiful life, one that's fulfilling, one that you enjoy, one that you're excited to get up and go through the day with, that will also be your fault. And it's up to you. Which life do you want to choose? Both of them are difficult. Both of them will require a lot of sacrifice. But sacrifice for what end? And we get to choose that. And it's not a choice that we're going to make once. It's not a choice we're going to make 1,000 times. It's a choice you're going to make hundreds of times a day. And sometimes you'll choose in a direction that you may not want to, but the thing is, you get to choose again. Every single second of every single day for the rest of your life, you get to choose. Which direction are you going to choose to go in? If we live by the values that we were first taught, we will live a wonderful and amazing life. Because happiness will exist with us. And even when it is going to be difficult, even when something happens and we just can't choose to be the greatest version of ourselves in that moment, it's okay. Because it's in those moments that we'll also learn a great deal. We'll learn about how we react to situations, what worked with that reaction and what didn't. And if we can observe those lessons, and if we can take them in and actually learn from them, we won't have to learn them over again. We won't have to be exposed to the same situation over and over again. And I bet a lot of us can look back in our lives and feel like the same thing just keeps happening and happening. And if we took the time to just take a moment and say, all right, what can I learn from this so that this doesn't happen this way again? What can I learn about myself? What can I learn about my interactions with people, with my interactions with values and with goals and with the world, with how I interact with the stuff that I own, with entertainment? There's relationships that exist all around us, and nobody hands you the blueprint of this is how to live out the best relationship, because it is something that we have to take the rest of our lives to discover, and we're going to learn a lot. And at the end of it, we're still going to have a lot left to learn, but how we lived every moment and how we decided to go through life is what's going to matter the most. Because it's the little things, it's the moment to moment that make up your entire life. And we get to choose how that life proceeds and in what direction it continues to go in. I hope you got something out of today's podcast. Tune in next time. We're going to keep going into lessons around the world. And until then, hope that you have an amazing day.